I said, no, I'm out. And I came home and she was like, what the hell did you do that for? I mean, you just did it. You said no. And I thought you'd be relieved. And she was like, no, like I had my heart set on it now. I really thought we were doing this.
That was Daniel Betts from the Well Comedy Club. Daniel is a dad. He's a husband, oil and gas employee, executive director at Portrait of a Warrior Gallery. He owns the Well Comedy Club. He's a veteran. He himself is a comedian. He has a household with 4 pets, and ultimately he's a producer of great comedy. In today's show, we discuss the comedy club and everything going on down at the Well. And be sure to stay tuned to hear everything about the Portrait of a Warrior Gallery, which is one of his passion projects. It was a fantastic show today. Be sure to stay tuned to listen to Daniel.
Welcome back to the Our 2 Cents podcast, the show where your local professionals sit down with an array of guests to hear their story and impart some wisdom for both business and life-improving skills. This is your place to hear business and community leaders discuss relevant topics that matter to you.
And welcome to the show today. I am John Duffield, a local certified public accountant here with Kyle Jones, and I'm your host today along with Kyle, and I'm here with Daniel Betts, who, amongst other things, is the owner of the Well Comedy Club. Daniel has a very full life and resume, and I'm excited to be able to discuss a number of those things. But before we get into today's episode, I'd like to encourage our listeners to sign up for our newsletter. It is a great way to stay up to date, and you can sign up on our website at our2centspodcast.com, and you can catch any podcasts you miss and be kept up to date. So it's really, really a good thing to do that. Daniel, happy to have you here today. Thank you for coming in with us.
Happy to be here, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you bet. I'm excited about this. When I started prepping for the show today, I was kind of going out and perving on you, trying to find out everything I could find about you.
Is that the right word?
Yeah, it was. Well,
I don't know if it's the second time he used it, though.
Yeah,
but
all right.
I'm saying it in a clean, professional way. Okay.
Sure you are.
So,
yeah.
No,
my OnlyFans account. Only Dan's account.
Dan. Anyways, you're kind of all over the board, but we're going to start with comedy and I'm excited about that. A big comedy fan, and you have a new comedy club. So let's start there. Tell us about the Well, how that got started, and how you got started in comedy.
Yeah, so I hinted at, I guess the Well Comedy Club first. I had been producing like a monthly show and weekly open mic, which had become the longest running open mic in Bakersfield. And I didn't start it. It had gone through several iterations. So from start to when I took it over, it became the longest running open mic. And we were off of Union Avenue.
It's a great place for a comedy show.
Right.
Yeah.
And in spite of that, we were getting these huge...
Were you looking for material over there? What were you doing?
We used to tell people if the show stinks, at least you could, the ladies of the evening could salvage it. By the way, how clean do you guys keep this?
More than one form of entertainment, I guess is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. How many F words do you guys keep? Are we going PG here?
So the cool thing about podcasts is all Steven has to do is put a little E next to it, and we're golden. So
we're gold. But what do you guys typically do? Are you guys clean?
Yeah, it's
for the most part.
Okay. All right. I'll keep it
relatively clean.
I'll keep it pretty PG then. Yeah.
Sure.
So I was running an open mic that had become really popular. And so in spite of it being a Thursday night on Union Avenue, we were getting these big turnouts. And the owner decided to retire and sell the business shortly before COVID. So my wife and I looked at potentially buying that space. We weren't thrilled about being on Union. We looked at a space downtown and thought, what if we could open the first comedy club in Bakersfield? And right around then, I've got cousins that live in Italy. COVID starts kicking off in Italy. And I was like, I don't think I want to be starting a brand new business right now. So it really sobered me up on the idea. And just before COVID, I was looking for a new venue. And I found what was the Well, and we were going to bring. In fact, it was Steven who was the one that told me I needed to go and talk to the guy. So we were getting all set to start the weekly mic and monthly shows over there. COVID hit. That was the end of it for a while. The Well reopened, in the kind of post-COVID world as an events-only venue. So they were, instead of being a bar, they were just going to do like line dancing, music, whatever.
And did they have a full liquor license?
Yeah, full liquor license.
Okay.
So it's where it's formerly B Riders, right? So like kind of a well-known Southwest Bakersfield dive bar.
Sure. It just seemed, having that liquor license, that's a valuable asset, right? And to not
absolutely.
use it and just have like dancing, it seems like a whole new business model at that point.
Yeah, somebody had gotten involved with the former owner who's become a great friend of mine over the years now. But somebody had gotten involved, and that was kind of his brainchild, was to turn it into an events-only venue. And he was going to kind of run all the entertainment, but wasn't running enough entertainment, you know? So at some point they came to me and they said, hey, comedy's doing better than everything else that we're doing here. What if we just make it a full-time comedy club? So February 26th of last year, we announced that we would transition the business into a full-time comedy club. And Jeff Timmons from 98 Degrees was out here for that. And we had a great show. We started filling up the calendar and adding open mics and booking talent. And the former owner came to me one day and he goes, hey, my wife and I are going to sell the business. We want to leave the state. We're moving. Any interest in buying it? And I said, well, when do you need to know by? And he said, Friday. I said, today's Sunday. So, and he said, you know, you've put a lot of time and work and money into this place. And I think a family wanted to come in and turn it into a Mexican restaurant. They were going to let go of all the staff. They wanted nothing to do with comedy.
What role did you have at that point, if any? Did you have any ownership interest?
No,
okay.
None. I was just running a weekly open mic and monthly shows. And when we had talked about transitioning to a full-time comedy club, I was going to just kind of run the comedy side of things. I was going to book shows and vet comics and produce and really kind of run the entertainment, but had no desire to manage staff and payroll and so on and so forth. But he came in and said, you know, this family wants to turn into a Mexican restaurant, and nothing. I love Mexican food, but Bakersfield's got plenty of Mexican restaurants.
We got a couple of those.
Not a single comedy club.
Yeah.
So he bought a little bit of time for me to give him an answer. We bought a little bit of time. We started kind of pouring over financials and talking about it. And I was just telling you just before we started, it came down to, we must have bought a few weeks. And I said, give me till 1 p.m. on Friday to give you an answer. He texted me at 1:05, anything? And I called him back and I was like, nah, I'm out. I'm nervous about what this is going to do to my family. We've already got so much going on as it is. And I'm kind of a psycho. I could just work endlessly and kill myself. And I went, I don't want to do this to the family. So I came home. I told my wife, hey, I called him. I said, we're out. And she was like, why? I'm all in. If you're in, I believe in you. I think we could do it. I think there's a vision for it. Central Valley doesn't have a comedy club, never has. Let's do it. So I called him back and I said, hey, did you accept that other offer yet? And he said, I did. And I said, can you get out of it? But I said, is there any way out of it? And he was like, dude, you're killing me. Are you serious? And I said, I'm in. He goes, how? And I said, I'm all the way in. I'm totally in. So he backed out of it. And credit to him, he knew that meant that his staff continued to have a job. I inherited his staff. We bought the place lock, stock, and barrel. So liquor license, inventory, the whole shebang.
I like the story, but something's not jiving. I'm going to press you a little harder on that.
It's like a legal issue?
No, not at all.
Not at all. So you up and up or not, you know?
So you told them you were out, but your wife was all in. Did you not communicate? I'm missing part of the story here.
Yeah, it's funny.
Or did you say, I know myself and I'm going to be out of this and save my family the trouble? And I'm just want to delve in that a little more.
That's a great question. I think a little bit, I thought I was saving her from it. I was losing sleep. The first time that we talked about buying the other location and then we looked at a place downtown, I was losing sleep both times. So I knew, I was like, this is going to be such an undertaking. And I was maybe a little bit afraid that I was like, I think you might be believing in me a little bit too much. In fact, I think you might be putting a little bit too much stock in me. And so I thought like, I don't know if she knows really what she's signing up for. This is going to be brutal for a while. So I had talked to her dad. I had talked to my mom. I'd kind of gone back and forth and I just went, it's happening so fast. I mean, this wasn't something that we put into motion for 6 or 12 or 18 months. It was like, hey, you want to be a business owner on top of, a full 9 to 5 job,
parenting,
3 kids. Yep. We have 3 dogs. We had 2 cats, 3 chickens, and the executive director at Portrait of a Warrior Gallery. And she was on a midterm campaign at the time as well. So I was like, are we really going to sign ourselves up for this sort of a punishment? I said, no, I'm out. And I came home and she was like, what the hell did you do that for? I mean, you just did it. You just said no. And I thought you'd be relieved. And she was like, no, I had my heart set on it now. I really thought we were doing this. So she's like, call him back.
So she's obviously enjoyed the comedy shows and the routine as much as you have, right?
Yeah, she enjoys comedy.
She ever get on a mic?
No. We did stay there till on St. Patty's Day. I think we were there till 3 or 3:30 singing karaoke after the show.
Okay, close enough.
So she'll get on the mic with a little bit of liquid courage and some friends to support her. She'll hop up there for that. But her, my stepson, our daughter, they're all stage fright. None of them would ever want to be up there.
I don't know how you do that, by the way.
I don't know either.
To me, being a stand-up comic is the most horrifying experience I can imagine. I mean, I cannot imagine trying to make people laugh and not doing it. And it's
pretty brutal. It's not a good. It's really not a good feeling. Like a bad bomb hurts. if you eat it real hard someplace and you've still got this 2-hour drive home from Fresno at midnight or whatever, and it's just silent, you know, like the radio's off and you're like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? You know?
Yeah. Is this the first time you've been self-employed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so guess what? Welcome. Because
Yeah.
I tell myself I suck all the time, right? And I've been self-employed since 1992, and so I get constant reminders that I need to get better at something, right? So,
Yeah.
And going up and bombing on stage, I'm sure most of those people are, you know, they frequently get it, right? Because the crowd responds pretty quickly.
There's no hiding from it. You know what I mean? I used to help kind of co-manage a friend's band back in Chicago years ago. And he was like, I don't know how you do it. I was like, I don't know how you did what you did. He's like, I had bandmates. You know what I mean? I could kind of hide behind if we were booked at some bar and they didn't know there was going to be live music and they didn't want to hear us and they were talking over us. We could kind of turn the instruments up and we could all kind of share a look on stage like, this sucks, right? But we're all going to get through it. Like, we'll shave 2 songs.
And it's music, right? I mean,
we'll get out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when you're just standing up there just bare and exposed and you got a crowd very clearly not into it or even letting you know, it's not fun.
But that's what open mic is, right? Open
Yes.
mic is just an opportunity for somebody to go up there and either knock it out of the park or bomb, right?
Yep. And you have no idea, right? I mean, you truly, like, when you go on stage and you take like a real virgin premise to the stage, you really don't know whether you're going to kind of knock it out of the park on the first try and go, that's something I'm going to keep and I'm going to polish it more and make that work. Or if you're going to take it up there and it's just like, nope, not funny at all. Okay. Everybody hates me. Okay, right, cool. Yeah. Thanks. I tried. Yeah. And you don't know until you do it. So there's no way of, like if you're a guitar player, you could practice in your garage and get that song pretty good.
Which brings up one of my questions. How much of comedy is improvisational versus I've got a routine, something that I've practiced 45,000 times?
I think it depends on the comic, right? So I was just listening to, so some comics will say they do most of their writing on stage, which is me. I go up there with fairly raw stuff and kind of, read the audience and go, what do they like and what are they not? What was wrong with that? What did I screw up, and then figure it out that way. But it takes a lot of repetitions that way to get it right. Whereas one of my close friends, he really sits down at Barnes & Noble, gets a tea, writes. And by the time he hits an open mic, it's pretty good to go. And so it really depends. So I always thought, well, I'm just being lazy, right? I'm not sitting down and writing. And so I just hide behind saying I have to write on stage. And then I heard, Louis C.K. was on the Joe Rogan podcast recently, and he goes, I go on stage with real raw stuff and write. And I was like, oh, see, I'm like that guy. I'm like one of the greatest of all time. That's how he does it. Same way. Yeah, same thing.
I had a similar question in that vein, in that I've seen comics who are well-established comics, and I've seen them have some material that just wasn't funny, but their delivery and the way they handle themselves, or the way it's still funny, right? And I've seen some people, and maybe they just maybe not as experienced, but they'll have bad material, and it's just their reaction to it just makes you feel uncomfortable. Is there a difference in delivering maybe not polished or bad material, but the way you deliver it makes it more palatable than someone who delivers it that makes it awkward?
Absolutely. I think there's a spectrum, right? I mean, there's comics that are terrible writers and terrible comics, but their stage presence, their persona, whatever kind of makes it palatable, like you said. And then there's the opposite of that sometimes too, which is you're a fantastic writer. And if you gave it to somebody else, they could probably take it up on stage and kill with it. But you go up there and you're reading from a notebook. And so then the other day, and no one's laughing at all. I think there's definitely a confidence thing that I think the audience picks up on. So the comics that really project confidence tend to do better.
Just a presence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think own the stage.
I think a likability too. I was just chatting with another comic about this and he pointed it out in me. He goes, I think you have a likability on stage where fairly quickly the crowd kind of wants to root for you. Like, oh, that's our guy. I want to see him do well. And so some people come out and right out of the gate, they've alienated the crowd. And it doesn't matter how good the rest of your set is.
You're done.
They've decided that they're against you. Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of the same way. I mean, I don't want to compare like stand-up comics, but we've done a lot of seminars and stuff, talks together done on estate planning or taxes, whatever. Obviously, we're not
stuff with a lot of
real exciting
content.
Yeah, right? Good exciting stuff. But we're not obviously trying to make people laugh. But at the same time, even if you know what you're talking about, but you don't have a way of presenting it, no one's going to get anything out of it.
Yeah,
substantially. They're like falling asleep, or they're not rooting for this guy, not liking this guy, or whatever. I can imagine being the same way with comics. So would you agree with that? Disagree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, you guys are great at this. I think if somebody would have told you on paper, hey, you got a couple of CPAs, they're starting up a podcast, you go, oh, I don't know.
I'm not a CPA. Don't insult me like that.
A state attorney, right? If it can get worse.
I'm not a bean counter. By the
We're over here insulting each other.
We are, but most bean counters are a little uptight. This is not one of them. He is the opposite of
I am absolutely uptight.
No, you're not.
That's why I like comedy so much. It is. I love comedy. I love laughing, right? And it's that bit of a relief for me, right? That release to go enjoy some good comedy. And so I'm probably not as uptight as some of them are. You're right, but I am very, very uptight. And so that comedy is one of the things I enjoy so much because of that. Because it's kind of I'm uptight, and it's that release.
So release, yeah.
It really is.
I actually studied business and accounting in college before switching majors, and then obviously through this weird chain of events finding comedy. And I had wanted to own a business when I was younger. And I thought, well, I'll study business and accounting. I'll know how to read a financial statement and I'll be kind of prepared for this. And then somewhere along the way, life just took me away from that. I gave up on the idea and then this just kind of fell into our lap. But you're right. We've had a lot of great feedback from folks going, hey, I didn't know this place existed, or I didn't know Bakersfield had a comedy club because we're still relatively new. And they come in and they go, this is great. I'm so glad that our town has something like this. And, I get to come in and just check life's problems at the doors. And so it's really cool that we have an opportunity to do that for some folks.
Listen, I think it's fantastic. And I don't know that Bakersfield knows enough about it, right? I mean, yeah. I don't know that we always do a great job of kind of promoting some of those things that we have to offer. People complain about Bakersfield because we don't have entertainment or culture or some of those different things, but in reality, it's a lot of it's here if we just dig deep enough.
Yeah, and it's been a bit of a training experience as well. We've had folks come in and they just don't understand what a comedy club is. We've never had one. We've never had one in Bakersfield ever, to my knowledge. There's been a couple of kind of small stabs at comedy clubs over the years.
Or venues for comedy, but not really a club.
Right, yeah. Specific club and only club. A lot of them, it's like they're doing quinceañeras and they're doing karaoke or whatever, or they seat 40 people and there's no liquor. So full-time legitimate comedy club. But we've had, a lot of folks have come in. Somebody who just commented on one of our ads the other day saying like, you shouldn't be shushing people in the audience. And I was like, well, I don't think you understand what a comedy club is then. Nobody paid to see you. Nobody got a babysitter and an Uber and a VIP ticket and went and got dinner and had drinks and got their one precious night away from the kids in 6 months to hear you carrying on, or people, hey, how come you guys don't serve pitchers? Well, because this isn't Applebee's. You know what I mean? I want you to come and enjoy the show, not get drunk and yak in my urinal. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole point of this. There's plenty of places in town that you can go and get hammered for cheap. That's not what we're doing.
Yeah. So you almost have to train the community on how to behave in those type of situations, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if you've never been to one before.
It's interesting. I think it was a Laugh Factory I was at over Christmas, went down and went with my son. We were down in L.A., saw a basketball game, decided to go to dinner in Hollywood, and then went to see a comedy show. But they force drinks on you for the record. You got to,
Yeah, 2 drink minimums most places.
2 drink minimum. So
I think same one in Vegas, right? Laugh Factory there.
Yeah, almost every comedy club is a 2 drink minimum.
And not you guys?
We're not. There's a chance that we'll kind of be forced into that at some point, but I hope not. I think, by the way,
your accountant can tell you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Well, now that I know I have till October to do my taxes, it's going to be a little longer before I figure that out. But
there's good business strategy.
But I think, most comedy clubs, the food is terrible. And so we have really good food and we have really good signature cocktails. So I think for the most part, people are kind of doing about a 2 drink minimum anyway. And where somebody, is not picking up the slack, somebody else is having 3 or 4. So I'm trying to avoid doing that here, especially because we've had such an education process with the community where there's already a bit of a culture shock, right? Somebody was in there, they showed up halfway through the show recently and were carrying on being loud at the bar, and they got shushed several times by door guys. And the guy flipped out and told us all to F ourselves on his way out the...
While someone was on stage?
Somebody's on stage in the middle of the show and he's hollering, all right, this place used to be B-Riders. And I was like, yeah, that's like standing in the middle of a Spirit Halloween store and saying it used to be Toys R Us. But guess what? It's not anymore. So,
used to be.
Off to Applebee's you go, buddy.
Right. So tell us about the format. I'm looking at the calendar. I pulled the calendar off the website and your calendar is as full as can be. It seems like you guys are doing something every night.
We're 6 nights a week right now. So Monday's the only night off so far. We have a free open mic every Sunday. And that one's kind of specifically geared towards like newer comics, folks wanting to cut their teeth and the kind of bucket listers, so to speak. And then we've got a free open mic on Tuesdays. And then on Wednesdays, we have a free showcase. So it's a free show And it's kind of comics coming like as far as maybe LA or every now and again, maybe somebody from
as far as Lamont or
as far as Lamont and Arvin. Yeah, they make their way down. Right. But we've had folks from Sacramento and the Bay Area come down for it, and folks come from LA area because we draw a pretty good crowd. And most of the comics want to perform for a crowd. And then generally we've got
practice time. Then.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like LA mics, you can get a ton of stage time, but it's never in front of people. It's like 8 comics and a laundromat. You know what I mean? Whereas we're different. We don't have as many opportunities in terms of the amount of mic time you can get in town, but we have real audiences. And so you get to see that feedback with the audience and see what's working. So Wednesdays we have this free showcase, and then I still host Thursdays, which was kind of the what we call our flagship mic that kind of launched the whole club. And then ticketed shows every Friday, Saturday. Every now and again we'll repurpose, a midweek or a Sunday for a show. Eventually I think we'll get to where some of the bigger comedy clubs are in the country, where we're doing 4 and 6 show weekends. So you'll get some bigger name comic that'll come and just do 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday.
Wow.
Or 2 Thursday, 2 Friday, 2 Saturday.
I'm blown away that you're doing 6 days a week. That's awesome.
We could use a little bit of help filling it out every now and again for sure. And obviously you guys know how Bakersfield is. If the fair's in town, you lose.
Right.
If when the kids graduate school, everybody heads to the coast and goes on vacation. So there's a lull there. And then right when they go back, there's that this is our last week of vacation, and then let's settle into our groove. So there's those periods that I've been doing this long enough in town to see that there's going to be slow moments for sure. But in general, I'd say we're doing great, let alone for being 7.5 months into it.
Sure. If a listener wanted to kind of know more, obviously they're going to go to your website, right? Buying tickets off the website or tickets at the door?
Both. They're cheaper on the website. So if you buy them at the door, the price goes up a little bit. We're trying to encourage folks to buy them early. Bakersfield is unlike most places I've been where ticket sales are very last minute. It seems like people...
Everything.
Yeah, for everything. It seems like they really, really wait to see if there's going to be something cooler going on in town before they decide. So we'll have people calling us 8 minutes after the show starts. Hey, what do you guys got going on tonight? And you're like, it's been on the website. We've advertised it for months, but...
same thing with even charity events. We have golf tournaments and casino night with Tiger Fight, and it seems like 2 weeks away, and it's like, gosh, we got this many more tickets to sell, and all of a sudden they're gone.
Yep. It's such a nightmare to prepare for, which is part of why we do more at the door, is deliberately just to try to incentivize you to buy them earlier. Make the commitment, buy the ticket, get your sitter, come on out.
I don't know if you guys talked about it. I ran a little late here, but what's the venue hold?
Right now we call it a 150 seater.
Okay.
So we've got seats on hand for about 150. I think our fire code is something insane, 283.
Okay.
And that's standing room, concerts and stuff like that. But we'll probably add another 20 to 25 seats in the next couple of months here.
Okay. So that's a decent size. if you fill that up, that's a...
Yeah, decent sized night. So we'll probably be about 175 seats. We got CSUB's retired theater curtains, which I thought was just kind of cool. So we'll be getting those up pretty soon, putting some of those throughout the venue, just a little piece of Bakersfield. And then we're getting the Fox Theater's retired stage curtains as well. So we'll have those up in the venue as well. And so when you come in, I think it's a little deceptive. It's probably not the location I would have chosen. And you're on White Lane between Gosford and Ash and going what is this, a strip mall? A laundromat. But even, we've had some pretty decent name comics come in and go, oh my God, this is great. We had Dave Williamson recently who had just done Red Rocks with Bert Kreischer. So, you're doing Red Rocks. It almost doesn't get cooler than that. And he came in, he's like, this place is great. I'm like, oh, thanks,
That's a nice pat on the back right there.
Yeah, we've had a few of those. So the comics are digging it. The audience is digging it. Obviously, the guy that told me where to go with myself didn't enjoy him, the show. But I think that was more about him than me.
He was having a bad night. He'll be back.
Yeah. He had probably just gotten thrown out of a firehouse or whatever and so decided to pop over there.
Thrown out of McDonald's.
Yeah.
What's your lease like on that place? How much time?
So I took over the former owner's lease, which I was really happy to do because it gave us, I want to say we ended up with about a year and a half on I can't remember exactly when. I think we had a year and a half. And I was like, I think that's going to be perfect because it'll give us time to figure out whether we like this and whether it's working, whether the community is kind of responding to it. And we want to go forward with this. It'll give us kind of a chance to get out of it if we decide that we needed and wanted to do that. And then it also gives us a chance where if we're 18 months in this and it's going great, let's look for a better location potentially, right? So,
yeah, that was kind of where I was going with that question is, are you actively thinking about looking at potentially a different location or?
Yes and no. I think, we bought the place and we never closed. It would have kind of been nice to close and then do a grand reopening and do all the work that we wanted to do. But our comics would have had no place to go. And the momentum that we were building up in the meantime, I didn't want to lose that. And as a comic myself, I wanted to be able to continue to have that home. So we've just kind of been slowly, every time you come in, you're like, oh, wow, it's a little cooler. And there's a little bit more going on. Oh, look, a new soundboard, you know? So it would be a pretty massive undertaking, I think, to up and move it. But I was just approached by somebody that has a space that they think would be perfect. So we'll explore that. I also have the first option to renew as well, right? So
okay, so you do have some options on that.
Yeah, so that was perfect. I go, we got 18 months. If this turns out to be a terrible idea, we get the hell out of here. If we want to move, we can. And if we want to stay, we've got the first option as well. So
perfect.
Yeah, kind of worked out pretty well. I love the lawyer perspective there. If I got to get out of this thing, I know who to talk to.
Yeah, for sure. Just run fast. Tell us about the and no forwarding address. Tell us about the some of the upcoming shows you have. Who do you like that's on the list that's upcoming that Bakersfield needs to hear?
We've got Chappelle Lacey this coming Friday, and I think it's going to sell out before doors. Usually, I'd say in this town, you could do about 50% of your sales day of or day of and day before. And I think we're going to sell this one out ahead of time. And then this coming Saturday, we've got Nurses Night Out, which is a close friend of mine, actually. I think he's must be about a 20-year comic. He's a veteran and a NICU nurse. So the guy's trained to kill you and trained to save a life. And
keep you laughing the whole time.
Is a NICU male nurse, right? So kind of an interesting perspective. You guys missed a good show on St. Patty's Day. I headlined it.
Shameless plug there.
Yeah, I did a full hour that night, so that was really cool to have been able to cross that off the list, so to speak. Who else do we have coming up? We got Sammy Obeid. He's on Netflix. He'll be coming up on the 7th of next month. We got Mike Falzone. That's another really good one. Josh Potter, Greg Conant. There's a bunch of, I mean, the place is run by a comic, and all of our independent producers, if the club isn't booking it and a local producer and promoter is booking it, they're also a comic. So everything's kind of through the lens of,
they know what to look for.
Yeah, what's the funniest people we can get? So like, I think the second show that I ran, there was a female comic named Laura Bites, and it was the last show she did before going out on an arena tour with Joe Rogan. So it's like we're kind of playing Moneyball a little bit, where there's so many comics that don't necessarily have household or name recognition.
Yet.
And yet we see like this is the one that's going to pop, and for good reason. They're hilarious. So if you come out to a show, it's like, you don't have to know who the comic is. You don't have to listen to their podcast. You could kind of just trust. If I go out on a Friday or a Saturday, I'm probably going to have a good time. You know, unlike the movies, right? Where you're like, is Top Gun playing at 7:10 p.m.? That's the one we're going to. Most people don't go to the theater and just go, I'll just see whatever they got, you know, but that's kind of what we've filled the room with, flyers that don't have a name or a face on them.
That's kind of a good message to market. I'm not a marketing guy. There's a gallery here to my right who is. She may have some opinions on that. But if you could, to know that if you can go there on a Friday or Saturday night and are guaranteed a good time, that's all you really need to know, right? Yep. Who cares who's playing? Just if once a month you're going to go watch a comedy show, which I probably would love to get the habit of doing, because I love, as you said, John, I love going to comedy shows. I've seen you a couple times at, is it Temblor? Yeah. You're in 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe. Usually,
probably maybe 20 maybe over 20,
there. Yeah. Love that. I mean, you've been great every time I've seen you. And
say it again.
So that's just, to me, it's fun. But if I know, like, hearing you say that, like, well, maybe I'm going to make a conscious effort to go once a month. Yep, 3 or 4 months, and see what. And if I'm getting a good show every time, then who cares what names are on there? Just know that's part of what I'm going to do
for sure. And I mean, I'll be, you know, comedy is subjective, right? So, you know, somebody could really love one comic and somebody else could hate them, and then the next comic they flip flop. So. Without a doubt, I mean, you could come to a show and go, that wasn't maybe I mean, this isn't good advertising, by the way, but you could come to a show and go, that wasn't really my cup of tea, or that guy was clean and I like blue comedy, or that person was talking about sexual stuff and it's not my cup of tea, whatever. But in general, I would say, I mean, for the most part, people are just coming out and just having a blast.
Yeah, but it may not be your cup of tea, but if you go there and it's professional, if they know what they're doing, and it's a nice place, nice atmosphere, good cocktails, you had a good time, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Presentations,
part of it,
100%.
I mean, you know, Vegas doesn't have, there really are no bad shows over there because of the presentation,
for sure,
substantially, right? It's the experience of the whole thing.
Yeah, I've been to the Laugh Factory in Vegas probably 24 times, and I would say more often than not, I'm not pleased with like the ultimate laugh factor of, if you will, of the comic that was there that given night, but I still had a good time. Yeah, because it was just fun. You know, I got a few laughs, and you know, sometimes I've seen people there and I'm just like crying hysterically, and you know, but that's not the point. It's like just being there and having that experience.
I think it's been fun for our local comics as well as just, our local community where it's not like a big corporate, like a Laugh Factory came in, a bunch of millionaires in a hedge fund and they put on this whole thing. I'm sure it would be nicer and I'm sure they would have better signage and all these sorts of things, but I think it's been kind of like it's our place, you know what I mean? So people come in and there's a bit of a mom and pop local family veteran owned and operated type business where you come in and it's like you feel like Norm from Cheers, if I could give an older reference, right? You walk in, hey, Norm, I'm always there, I'm always ready to do a shot with somebody, you know what I mean? So it's like it's just you feel like you get to be a part of it. And I think that's like the rock and roll thing that we're kind of going for, So
I want to change direction a little bit, but before we do, we didn't catch how you got into comedy, right? The childhood thing, the high school to comedy. Take us back and how that happened. And then after that, take me into Warrior Gallery.
Absolutely. So, it's funny. I was doing comedy before I ever it was my brother that reminded me that when I was a kid, I remember my folks were separated. My brother and I would go and spend summer sometimes with my father. We were from Chicago. He was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we'd go and visit him and he kept taking us to this like bar. And I thought it was because they had like a shrimp cocktail, like a bottomless shrimp cocktail or something like that. And my brother was like, no, you idiot. It's because they had an open mic. And so I was like between like 7 and 12, however old I was. And my dad kept taking me to this open mic, trying to encourage me to get up and do it. I was like, looking back, I thought he just liked the shrimp cocktail. And I had a fourth grade teacher. I remember being the class clown. And I had a fourth grade teacher, I was like interrupting the whole class and she pulled me aside and kind of in front of the whole class, she was like, Dan, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it never made sense to me what happened that day until I was an adult and I was already doing comedy. And I remember thinking back at that and I was like, oh my God, that's what happened. That was that face that she made at me. I didn't understand it as a kid. She said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm sure that she had done this 100 other times. And the kid goes, I want to be a scientist. I want to be an astronaut. And then she goes, well, then you're going to have to get good grades in school and pay attention, right? And I said, I want to be a stand-up comedian. And her face was like, crap.
Go ahead and drop out now if you want.
Keep doing what you're doing then. I mean, you're cracking up the whole class. You're doing great. Like my whole speech. This has never not worked for me before. So I was actually living out here and I had a buddy that owns a bar in Taft. And he calls me up one day. I was hanging out at my place, had a couple buddies over. We're getting ready to jump in the pool. We're having a beer. And I missed the call. I checked my voicemail and he goes, hey man, we got a comedy show at the bar tonight. Starts at 7:30. You're doing 5 minutes up top. See you this evening. And I called him back. I was like, what are you, nuts? Like, I'm not going to go do a show. I've never done comedy before. And he said, you said you've always wanted to do it. You showed me you've got some notes in your phone. You're going to do it or you won't. See you tonight. And I was like, I didn't even know what those were. Those were premises. Those were the ideas that would later become bits and I would string the bits together into a set. But I didn't even have the terminology for it. I was like, these are just funny thoughts. I've never even told them to anybody. So I said, all right, well, challenge accepted. So I showed up. I did 5 minutes. It went pretty well. I met a couple of local comics through it. They told me about open mics here in town. And the rest is history. I just went, oh, okay, cool. I guess I'll try this out. And so just stuck with it ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah, really challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. That's good. And then so another challenge accepted, Warrior Gallery of Kern County. Tell us about that. You're executive director?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, tell us about how that got started and tell us about the organization.
So Portrait of a Warrior Gallery started in Baytown, Texas with a guy named Ken Pridgeon. The guy's in his mid-80s now. And decided to paint a portrait of every post 9/11 fallen service member from Texas. And friends of mine that were on the boards at Wounded Heroes and Honor Flight, some other great organizations, heard about this and said, we should have a Portrait of a Warrior Gallery, Kern County. So a friend of mine, a retired sergeant major who also works at an oil and gas company with me, reached out to me and said, hey, would you come be an ambassador to one of the 27 post 9/11 fallen service members from Kern County. So you're going to come and represent him in roll call, and you're going to meet his family and kind of take them through the gallery for our grand opening. And I said, sure, absolutely. Asked me to come onto the board of directors, so founding board member. I started as the secretary, and then moved into our financial committee, and then our executive committee, and now the current executive director. And so we have, it's 1925 I Street. It's right by Dagny's, right across from where that war mural is on that building downtown near Sandrini's. And so we have 27 hand-painted portraits painted by local artists for each of the 27 fallen post 9/11 service members from Kern County. We also have a Vietnam room, which has a picture of each of our fallen Vietnam veterans from Kern County. We also have our crosses. We have 22 crosses on the wall to signify 22 veteran suicides per day. We have the Price of Freedom wall, which shows how many U.S. service members have died in every major American conflict. And then we also have a team room, which is set up to look kind of like the sleeping quarters of a forward operating base. And so kids can come in and you can sit. What's cool about it is, like most museums, that would probably be behind plexiglass. You just look at it. But you can come in and sit down on somebody's cot. All the gear in there is donated by local veterans. Our former executive director, who's currently serving as our vice chairman, was a corpsman. In his medical bag, he came home from Afghanistan, dropped his bag on the floor, and he's never unzipped it since. And it's sitting in the gallery. And you can come pick that thing up and get a feel for what it would be like to carry that. And then we have a sister nonprofit that shares our space called Missing in Action Remembered. And it's going to have dog tags from each of our 82,000 plus service members whose remains we've never recovered hanging from the ceiling. So 82,000 dog tags hanging from the ceiling. You're going to be able to find your loved one or somebody that you're looking for within about 6 inches and find their dog tag. And whenever we recover the remains of one of our fallen, so like during the last administration, North Korea gave us the remains of 5 of our fallen. Once they've been identified and their families have been notified and they've received their proper burials, we'll take that dog tag down, dip it in gold, hang it back up, and then reduce the number on the wall. So really amazing place. We allow the gallery to be used for other nonprofits. There's one that teaches veterans how to play guitar. And after the end of 6 weeks of free classes, they get the guitar. Same thing, they do piano lessons, and they get the Casio keyboard at the end of it. And if I can hijack your podcast just for one more second here and tell you a really cool story, Portrait of a Warrior Gallery is also going to sponsor somebody. So one of our founding members, our original vice chairman, is a former Army sniper and Silver Star recipient. And when we decided to pull out of Afghanistan and it became such a mess in Kabul and around H-Kaya, the base that you saw people trying to storm and get on the planes, his Afghan interpreter was left behind and put on a kill list by terrorists in Afghanistan. And so my friend, amongst a bunch of other people, but spearheaded by my friend, worked tirelessly to try to get them out of country, tried several times to get them to H-Kaya and be evacuated that way. Each time they were met by the Taliban and forced back. Finally got them out of country to Pakistan, where they're at now. And it looks like, if all things go well, I got goosebumps telling you this, within the next several weeks, he's going to be stateside here in Bakersfield. So him, his wife, and their daughter. And so Portrait of a Warrior Gallery is sponsoring them. So we're going to take donations to help get them on their feet when they get here. We also raised money for them at the Well Comedy Club a while back. So I took one of my old boots from when I was in the military. We passed it around one night at an open mic, raised a bunch of money. The club threw a little bit of money into it. And then my good friend Jeff Salters at Salty's Barbecue matched it. And so we got them some money to put in their pocket and get them to a safe house and get them out of country. And now it's looking fingers crossed, like within the next several weeks, maybe a couple months at most, we'll have them stateside and in Bakersfield. So another great thing that Portrait of a Warrior Gallery is doing.
Cool story.
Yeah, pretty neat. Pretty excited.
And then in addition to that, you're a Chevron employee.
Yeah, Chevron as well. Yeah.
Right. And so like you need something else to do with your life,
I know.
right?
Chevron and 3 kids and 3 dogs, 2 cats, 3 chickens. We just got rid of the chickens. I was a little too busy for chickens, but yeah, just a little bit busy.
That's here, dinner, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I got rid of the chickens right before the price of eggs went up, which in hindsight was stupid.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So.
I got one or maybe a couple follow-up questions. The fear, obviously, you don't have that fear of going on stage and performing comedy. At least you hide it pretty well. But did you have any, or do you have any fear with being a new entrepreneur / business owner? And do you equate those fears differently, the same? Kind of tell us a little about.
I'm terrified, frankly. Yeah, I'm terrified. But I think I had a pretty good sense for how much work it was going to be. I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about how hard owning a business is, let alone starting a business, and the percentage of businesses that fail. My wife's brother and sister own a business up in Porterville. And right after we purchased the place, they sent me a TikTok video, and it's like aerial footage of a girl putting beach umbrellas into the sand. And the narrator voice is like, I got tired of working a 9-to-5 job, so I decided to start my own business. And now I work 24/7. And I was like, God, if that isn't true. But it was, I don't know that we would have done this any other way, right? To go out and seek the property and to go, pick out the bar tap and the stools and things. I just don't know that I ever would have gotten to it. But the thing was just right there, and it kind of felt like divine intervention, and it felt like all the stars kind of lined up, and we'd be foolish not to do it. But now we've probably got, I don't know, 12 or 15 comics that work as door guys and sound guys for the club. And we're filling up the kitchen and we're filling up the bar, and you go, oh my God, you know what? There's a lot of people counting on us now. There's a lot of people that work there, and they want their paycheck, and they want big crowds on the weekends so that they can make tip money. And you're playing I was producing shows before, but it was like, I was sitting at the blackjack table with somebody else, but we were playing with different pots in front of us. You know what I mean? I was on Fremont Street with the $3 minimums. And so, it can be kind of big money in and big money out. Right. But, so no, it scares the hell out of me all the time. But I guess to tie it back to your question, I know I'm still scared every time I go on stage. In fact, I would say any time that I've ever gone on stage feeling very comfortable, I didn't do terribly well. Like if I was really relaxed in the green, I'm like, I got this, I'm good at this. I'm just gonna go up there and wing it. I ate it. And so a little bit of that kind of fear, I think, is healthy. And similarly with the business, I mean, I'm afraid to have it fail. And so I work my butt off to make sure it doesn't.
Yeah, it probably has something to do with preparedness,
yeah.
Right? And so you're nervous about it, and so you go, hey, I'm nervous about it. What can I do to make it better and be prepared about it? And then consequently, that preparedness causes it to be better.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. The more prepared you are, right, the better. And then I think there's maybe a little bit of peace in going, I've done everything I can do. So now I'm just going to let the chips fall where they may. Once I get on stage, you're going to like the jokes I'm telling you, or you're not. And there's been people that have come out and it just wasn't for them. Somebody commented that the speakers were a waste on comedians talking and that they wish it was live music. And it was like, well, then why the hell did you come here? I mean, you knew you were going to a comedy show, and then you leave that comment. Like it's like going to McDonald's and going, I couldn't get a Whopper. Well, no kidding. So it's not going to be for everybody, but by and large, the folks that have come have had a really good time.
And I also imagine that doing it's something you love. So the old saying is, if you're doing something you love, you're not really working. And so even though you are probably putting
I'm working my butt off, but I wouldn't do this if I didn't love it.
Exactly. That was kind of where I was going to go. You weren't open this up just to try your hat as an entrepreneur and say, hey, I want to start another small business, just bring some supplemental income for my family. I mean, this is a labor of love, and it just so happens to be one that is also a business. Yeah,
I don't think, in fact, one of our mutual friends that we played basketball with that one fateful day, but he and I had talked about a comedy club at some point, and I think those were kind of his words. Like, I just don't think you could do it in this town without it being a labor of love.
Right. So speaking of basketball, my brother-in-law, which he did play with us at one time, he's got a friend who's a teacher over at one of the elementary schools in the Northwest, and he's going to start opening the gym up at Fridays at 3:30. So I'm going to try to go.
Not going to be there. Do you know how, by the way, during that game, one of the guys that came out as another local comic, a guy named Joe, and during the game, like one time I get the ball, I'm wide open, and it's like, I'm like 20 feet from the goal, right? And I'm cruising along, and I'm like, it's just me. It's like, I'm going to score this time for sure. And he goes, I'm open, pass it. And I pass it to him. And I don't, I was like, this was my moment to shine and score, But I was like, whatever, man, I'm a team player. So I passed it to my buddy, and that son of a bitch was on the other team. He took the ball. He just ran down the court the other way like a complete moron. I threw the ball to Joe, and he just ran the other way. I ran off the court screaming, "You're all liars." I'll never. So horrible, dude.
Hey, do you old guys have any youngsters in there, or is it just a bunch of old dudes that play?
I haven't gone yet.
That was the only time I went, and I won't be back. I don't think I'm going to be invited back.
Oh, no, I'm going to go.
Right, let's get it straight. You're not going to be invited back.
It's a good workout. I mean, it's good. And so if you want to come,
hey, go run around the block. It's a great workout.
It's different though.
Listen,
I don't know.
Listen, I'm not a basketball guy. Come on. Take one look at me. Come on.
Just go in the parking lot, tear your ACL, and cut to the chase. You know what I mean? Like, why?
I don't know. Like, cardio to me is like, I mean, you can go run around the block or run on a treadmill mindlessly forever. And sure, if you like that, it's fine. But I'd rather play basketball, play racquetball, something, I don't know, I feel like having a purpose of sweating.
My youngest son can play basketball, and I was asking so that when he shows up to town every 6 months, and I was going to have him go over there and show you what.
Come embarrass.
Oh, yeah. He'll schools for sure. But
pickleball's the new rage these days. Everybody in Bakersfield starting to play pickleball.
It's our old
low impact.
Right. Right. Low impact.
You could pull a hammy easy playing pickleball. I mean,
yeah, for sure. Okay, good. You have been so gracious as to donate some tickets for us for your upcoming, and so we're excited about that. So some of our listeners are going to get some tickets to the comedy show.
We're going to do a giveaway, Daniel?
We are going to do a giveaway, so we're pretty excited about that.
For a particular date, or do we have that, or is it just going to be in general?
No, we're going to let them pick. So I think we're doing a
ticketed show, I'm assuming? Something about open mic. He's giving away to open mic.
Yeah, to the free. We're doing, we'll do a VIP... whatever they want to do. We'll do a VIP table or a booth for 2, and then we'll do a 4 pair of general admissions, and then all they have to do is just contact us to say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I won the tickets, and I'd like to come, and then we'll just put a credit into their account.
Oh, cool.
So in that way, they could just choose whatever upcoming show they want to go to. So they want to sit back for a few months till they find one that speaks to them, by all means.
Or if they're busy and they can't make it the particular weekend, they can. That's really cool. Make sure they'll use it at least.
Yeah, exactly.
While we're talking about the club, tell us about phone number and Instagram and all that good stuff. How do we get a hold of you?
We are the Well Comedy Club on Facebook and on Instagram, and I believe on TikTok. I don't manage it. I'm not too involved. That's for the millennials. But Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, The Well Comedy Club. You can go to the website, thewellcomedyclub.com. You can shoot us a message at info@thewellcomedyclub.com. And I'll give away the phone number one more time, but I'm about to take it off the website because it's all hours of the night. But it's 661-724-6609.
Is that your cell phone number or something?
That's the business line, but it goes to my cell phone number, which is why I shouldn't do it because people call with the dumbest questions. Do you guys have parking? No, I expect you to.
You should.
You park out on White Lane, right?
Yeah, I expect you to fast rope from a Chinook. Of course we have parking. Full bar and kitchen.
You should, I don't know if you do, but you should gather some of those questions and comments and put a little segment together.
Yeah, you really should.
I did a set on stage one time about all the horrible questions that we get, and then just recently we I think yesterday or the day before we did a poll asking folks on social media if some of the folks that have been really rude in messages to us or comments or like a Yelp review or a Google review, just like unnecessarily rude. And once we started receiving this, I was like, God, are people this ruthless? And I looked at other local businesses and I was like, oh yeah, they're getting it too. Like multi-million-dollar business run by great people, great establishment. They're getting hit up by unhappy, miserable people too. So we put out a poll and said, should we share some of these on social media anonymously? We'll block out their name and face, and then do it at a comedy club.
You need your Gold Star Award winner board. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. So it's like, so do we not give them the attention, or do we put them out there and light them up? And
the latter for sure.
Light them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the results were like 58-42 that we should.
I would say don't be offended by it. Who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we're laughing here. We got to have a good time and laugh about it.
Yeah, so. some lady hit us up asking what time the headliner goes on. It was like, well, no one calls AMC to say, hey, are the previews over? Like, because I want to see Top Gun, but I don't want to watch the trailers. Should I head that way now? You buy the ticket and you show up, right? And we didn't respond to her, and then she wrote back, thanks for nothing. And I was like, do you think that our sole purpose in life is just to answer every, you know what I mean? So
it's not.
I got chickens to raise. Why are you yelling at me later?
I'm gonna throw myself under the bus. That was so I frequent a lot of Metallica concerts, as you know, John, and I've been to so many, and I don't like seeing the opening acts. I want to go see Metallica, so I do what I can to call the box office and be like, hey, what's?
In other words, he's that guy.
I'm not.
Okay.
So I did that. So
are you the guy that also
sorry.
figures out what their set list from the night before?
No. I want to be surprised about that.
People do that one. They go like, well, what did they do last night in Tulsa? It's like, just show up.
Yeah. But I definitely want to be there close to when they go on instead of.
I get it.
So that was me. I'm sorry.
I get it. But a comedy show is only 90 minutes, give or take, door to door anyway, right? So it's like, and we're a 150 seater. You're going to walk in halfway through and then.
Oh, it's a totally different thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a different. I forgive you
still
for
me.
I used to do the same thing too.
That was me.
You do the math. You go, doors open. There's 3 bands.
Yeah.
Set changes about 15 minutes, right?
I only got a certain amount of energy at this age. I got to preserve it, you know?
Yeah. Pace yourself.
So we're going to wrap with a couple of introspective questions, if you will.
Okay. You ask me what it was like to when my parents separated as a kid, or growing up with ADHD in Chicago.
I think comedy. I think life creates a lot of comedy, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, that would be your answer. So no, one it would be if a young listener wanted to get a career started in comedy. What would you tell them to do, and what mistakes did you make doing it, right? And please don't tell them to in the 4th grade try to make everybody laugh and make Mrs. Johnson mad about the whole thing.
I don't know. I'm at a phase in my life, I think, where I realize what was the Jim Carrey commencement speech where he said you could fail at doing something you don't love. So if you're going to fail, you might as well do it trying to do something you do love. So I would encourage somebody to go for it. I would say if that's something you want to do, go for it. Find the local open mic wherever you live. Get out there and just start doing it. And it's kind of a war of attrition. I've had kind of big name comics. I say, what would you tell a 1-year comic? And their advice overwhelmingly seems to be fairly similar. Like, just don't quit, because that break is like right around the corner. So go for it.
Open mic every Sunday.
Open mic every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday.
So
Sundays is for beginners.
Kyle will be there Sunday, so he'll see you Sunday.
If I don't see you there soon, just to come out and check out a show.
I will. I'm committing.
Find a new best friend.
I'm committing.
I will too. I might have to.
Why don't we go together?
Yeah, absolutely. Second thing, if you could turn back time, here's that turn back time thing, right? And it says 18 years old, but some point in time in your life. So something you screwed up. What'd you screw up, and what would you do differently?
Oh, Jesus, there's too many things.
Right.
There's too many things I screwed up at to say where I would start over. I would maybe be a little bit more cautious in my late teen, early 20 years. I was a wild one, but joined the Navy at 19, and that helped sort me out a little bit. But
does military really straighten those kids out at that age? I mean, it seems to.
It's make it or break it. You know, I joined pre 9/11, but was in during 9/11, and enlistment skyrocketed after 9/11. And the U.S. military needed so many bodies that they were taking everybody. I mean, there were people that literally that I served with that a judge told them, go to jail or serve your country. And so I met a lot of folks that used it like I did as a tool to kind of turn their life around and get into a different crew of people and kind of a stepping stone to get to where they wanted to be. And I saw a lot of people, it was, they
didn't want to go to jail.
Yeah, they were at a crossroads. And so it was probably worse. It wasn't a decision that they should have made. And so it potentially maybe made things harder for some folks. But it was what you made of it.
Kyle, anything before we go?
Except we're going to be out there Friday or Saturday next couple of weeks.
We'll be out there soon.
Yeah.
Promise.
Dan, anything you want to say before you let us go?
No, you guys, thank you so much for having me on. I think we decided what was on episode 24 early on COVID days. I think I did it
Zoom
via Zoom.
Lame.
In my
not
garage.
your
yeah, hey.
The whole Zoom thing.
You've gotten better. It's okay.
Oh, thank you. So have you guys, by the way. You guys have had some amazing guests on here, by the way, and Spindler's a good buddy of mine, and we were looking at some of the guests you guys have had on. So this was exciting. I was really happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, I have to add one final comment before I let you go. When I go to comedy shows, I sit in the very back because I'm an old, aging, kind of pudgy accountant. How much material can I give you, right? And so I don't sit in the front row when I'm at a comedy show because, I get beat up on when I'm sitting in the back. I don't need encouragement, right?
It's really funny, by the way, when you come out, you'll see we have 2 rows of tables for 2 in the front of the house. And I can't tell you how many times they're completely empty. Every single one of them is empty and everybody's sitting in the back. And I have to encourage, so I just tell people, I go, listen, I could see you no matter where you sit. So at least if you sit up front, it shows you got a pair and maybe I won't pick on you as bad. So I'll talk to somebody specifically in the back and why are you sitting back there? I don't want to get picked on. Well, how's that working out for you? Come on up here. Come on up, sit up front.
That's actually a good question. I know we can go on forever, but in your material a lot, do you often use the crowd? I don't want to say pick on them, but you know, as part of your material, or are there a lot of comics do that, or some like I never touched that, or
yeah, there's some that are just straight up like we had Ian Bagg, and feel free to somebody should look up Ian Bagg when this is over, but one of the best crowd work comics in the world, and he was there a couple weeks ago, and his whole, he did an hour and 10 minutes of just crowd work, and people were dying. I tend to do more material. Okay. And when I was younger in comedy, I would really kind of stick to the script, and I missed out on a lot of great opportunities. You know, somebody fell out of their chairs, and it was something you just had to address. And I was like, no, I'll stay on. I really wanted to get all of my material in whatever I was booked for, 20, 30-minute set or whatever. Whereas now, thankfully, I can get some longer sets booked. And so I'll stick to the script, but if something presents itself, of course, I do. But I'm not mean to people. I feel like
that's more of the crux of my question.
I'm not into the roasting thing. Okay. It's like you man, you got a sitter and an Uber, and you came out to have a good time. Why am I going to crap on you? You're trying to take your lady home tonight, and you know the kids are gone. Why do I want to embarrass you in front of her? You know?
That's fun stuff. Thank you so much for coming in. It's been fantastic. We really enjoy having you, and we will absolutely see you out at the comedy show here soon.
Thank you so much. And once you guys give those tickets away, let me know. I'll send you some more to give away next month too.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
This show has been brought to you by the Law Office of Kyle Jones, Troy Burton with the Lemme Company, CPA John Duffield, Scott Hansen Real Estate Lender, broker and investor, Dave Plivlich, President and CEO of the Marcom Group and MarcomBranding.com, and Amanda DiGiacomo, President of Atlas Financial Solutions. You've been listening to the Our 2 Cents podcast. Check out the show notes for links and more information about the show. Also visit our website at our2centspodcast.com or catch us on Instagram at Our 2 Cents Podcasts. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share with others.